All right, and hi everybody. Welcome back to Hot Cakes and Hot Takes. Moving on to the sixth and final game of the Wild Card Weekend preview between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, a rematch from Week 17, which didn't have Big Ben in that one, but big win for Cleveland. And this is their first playoff game in 17 years. So hop over to you guys. How you feel about this matchup going into the weekend?
Well, I think it's a pretty good matchup to put in prime time on Sunday night. And we saw it last week, and it was a pretty competitive game, even without Ben Roethlisberger. And I think we're probably going to see another one this week. Obviously, the COVID issues for the Browns may come into play. I mean, Kevin Stefanski isn't going to be able to be out there, so that's an interesting element to this game. But the Steelers, man, we just don't know. Like they're 13-3, or what did they finish? Maybe 12-4 since they didn't try it in the last week. But they've got to be like one of the most just mysterious 12-4 teams that we've seen in a long time. And because of that, I think this could be really competitive. We're just not sure.
Yeah, I would feel that way if they didn't have the COVID issues. And I mean, I've been, victim to it as well. A lot of people are just mentioning only that Big Ben stat, but I mean, there were plenty of guys on the defensive side of the ball that didn't play in last week's game. Like TJ Watt didn't play. I don't think Cam Hayward played. So they had a couple of key guys that weren't playing to this last Sunday, and they still almost won, or at least tied it up at the end of the game. So with the COVID issues and with key players for the Steelers coming back, it could be I'm not gonna say a blowout, but I certainly like the Steelers more in this one.
All right, well, let's hop right into the matchup. So we'll start with the Steelers offense against the Browns defense. Looking at the Steelers O-line here, they only allowed 14 sacks this season, which is best in the NFL. But when you look at the rushing yards, only 84 yards per game, which is last in the NFL. So obviously, they're relying on the pass. And you're looking at this Browns D-line. Obviously, I think Olivier Vernon is not going to be playing this game. But, looking at this, they have 12 fumble recoveries with this D-line, so they are able to get turnovers, and they're just wreak havoc. 32 tackles for loss on the season for this Browns defense. So obviously, you got a really bad running game against a team that's able to stop the run, so you get the advantage too in this one.
It's definitely a very, very close matchup. They're very, very strong players on both sides. I think based on scheme, I'm going to give it to the Steelers offensive line. They don't run the ball well, and I think a large part of that has been in the fact that you didn't really know who was going to be playing. I think James Conner had COVID or had injuries throughout the year, so I mean he was there and wasn't there, seemingly every other week, and then you only had Benny Snell to back him up, so they just didn't have a lot of depth when he was out. But in terms of like their offensive play calling, Ben gets the ball and he throws it faster than anybody in the league this year. That's what that's what you kept hearing on all the primetime games, how quickly Ben throws the ball compared to all of his other years in the league. So just based on that, that's going to eliminate, the great pass rushing ability of guys like Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon, Sheldon Richardson. So they're not going to be able to get to Big Ben just because of the way they're going to play this football game. So I'm going to give the advantage to the Browns, Steelers.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's pretty much a push for me. And you look at the Browns defensive line, and the first half of the season, they were unbelievable. And then Myles Garrett goes down, gets COVID. Since he's been back, it doesn't seem to be his usual self. It sounded like he's been having kind of some lung issues, just doesn't have that, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but his lungs are not...
Not enough stamina?
Yeah. Yes, stamina. The stamina is just hasn't been there. Hopefully, it's been about a month now. Hopefully he's back to full strength this week because they're going to need him. But yeah, just the inability for the Steelers to run the football all season long is just kind of crazy to me considering what they have been in the past. But you might be right, Brzezinski. It could be more of a scheme thing and just not knowing who's going to be back there. So that could contribute as well. But overall, I think this one is pretty much a push. And if the Browns are able to get some pressure on the Steelers or even I'm not going to say they don't want to fall down early, but not necessarily come out scoring a bunch of points and get the Steelers in a point where they're going to want to chuck the ball over the field, because I think they're in trouble if they are.
All right. Well, yeah, we can move on to the next matchup then, where we got the Steelers running backs against these Browns linebackers. Obviously, Jane Connor, I think, is going to be leading the way here. Benny Snell followed behind. And, just looking at them, they when they do run the ball, they're able to – they get big plays out of them. So, opportunistic runs, I guess is what you can call it. But it's pretty crazy when you're looking at rushing attempts on first down. They only have 81 rushing. Normally first downs when you want to run the ball. They only have 81, which is second fewest in the NFL. Pretty crazy looking at that stat, where I just think Big Ben's going to be throwing the ball around. So maybe we don't even have to compare this matchup because of how little the Steelers run the ball. But looking at the Browns linebackers, it's pretty crazy. I was looking at this stat. The Browns on fourth down give up 81.5%. So teams convert almost 82% on fourth down against the Browns, which is second worst in the NFL. I thought that was a crazy stat, so that's why I threw that one on there. But who are you giving the advantage to in this one?
Well, the craziest part about that stat is that there's somebody worse than them. 82%? Somebody did worse than that? It had to be the Lions or the Texans.
I don't remember. I wish I do now, but yeah. I just was looking at it. I'm like, that's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously pretty weak spots for both of these teams. And you're right. We really don't need to break this one down. The Steelers they've been so inconsistent, and really, like we said, just a lack of effort. They haven't even really tried to run the football. And with the receivers that they have this year, it's hard to blame them. Obviously, it was working. They were 11-0 at one point. But the other side, the Browns, I mean, BJ Goodson, the only reason I know him is he used to be on the Packers. He's just a retread from Green Bay. Like, they had a bunch on their defense for a while, and the other two guys I've never even heard of. So I'm not going to pretend to break down their linebacking core.
Well, you don't know Sian Takitaki?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard of him because he had a pick six a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, he's probably been the bright spot on their linebacking core, but it's certainly taken a big hit since Joe Schobert left and he went to Jacksonville this year. So, haven't been able to find quite an answer to, fill the shoes that he had, leading the league in tackles for a couple of years now. But I mean, just based on the fact that Connor has, had success in the past, I'll give the edge to the Steelers. But, like you guys have summed it up already, it's pretty much a push of two very, very poor units.
What was the YouTube show that the Browns were on? It wasn't, God, I'm blanking. What's the summer one where they have teams videotape them, they film them for the summer at their training camps? What's that?
Are you talking?
Yeah, what's
Are
that
you
show?
talking the NFL? I just had it too. Boy, this is bad. I just had it and I lost it. Wow, this is really bad radio, boys. And I'm just surprised, Bull. It's on HBO. Boy.
Yeah, Hard Knocks.
He said
Hard
YouTube.
Knocks.
He said YouTube.
The
Which
Browns
is what
had
threw me
one
off.
on
He
YouTube.
goes, they do it in the summer and they got it like during training camp. I'm like, he's thinking Hard Knocks, but then I forgot about it.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
Well,
Hard
that's
Knocks-
that's what I initially thought, but then he said YouTube. I'm like, well, it's not Hard Knocks. So I'm not even going to say it.
It wasn't Hard Knocks, but they had their own on YouTube. That was like a knockoff of Hard Knocks. So that's the only reason why I know Taki because he was like the main guy they followed.
AJ,
Sorry.
a big Browns fan. He's watching their YouTube page.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Well, that's my bad. I guess I should have known this guy from the Browns YouTube channel.
we can move on to the last matchup for the Steelers. Their wide receiving core, obviously, this is where they make their bucks. Looking at, they get the Browns secondary. Even though they only average 258 yards yards per game, passing wise, that's right in the middle. The big stat that everybody talks about this Steelers team is they drop the ball a ton, 29, which is most in the NFL. And they're going up against a Browns secondary, which hasn't been bad this year. Well, I guess kind of bad. I don't know. I like Denzel Ward as number one corner guy. And, Andrew Sandejo is all right. He's a big hard hitter. Well, who you guys giving the advantage to in this match?
The Steelers receivers have more depth, and all across the board, they're solid. And that's the reason I'm going to give them the edge. Not that the Browns secondary, isn't or is bad by any means. Again, Carl Joseph, first round pick, really solid safety. Andrew Sendejo, a little bit older, but he is still very solid, plays at a decent level. But yeah, Denzel Ward is one of the better cornerbacks in the league. But even though they drop the football a lot, they still have plenty of opportunities to make big plays because they have such a high volume since they don't run the ball very often. So they can drop it, but they'll be right back at it and still making plays. I mean, everywhere you look, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Chase Claypool, all are very, very good receivers, all very young, so the future is very bright for the Steelers. And Eric Ebron, after he got drafted by the Lions, didn't do much, kind of had a resurgence last year with the Colts and continues that with the Steelers. So, just the way that Big Ben has been playing this year, this whole unit is, better in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the sheer fact that AJ talked about the Browns secondary and he said they haven't been bad. I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up for them. And on the other side, the Steelers receivers, I feel like have been good. I mean, like you said, they have so many options. In the beginning of the year, it was Juju. Then in the middle of the year, like out of nowhere, Chase Claypool was scoring 3 touchdowns every game. And then at the end of the year, Deontay Johnson came off the injury and he's been performing really well. And 2 great tight ends to go with it. AJ, you thought Big Ben was an MVP contender for most of the season. I mean, how do you not pick the Steelers in this matchup?
Only if they went undefeated.
Only.
That's what I said. If they lost the game, he was out. And they lost a lot. So you can't really consider him anymore. But we'll flip the script now and we'll do the Cleveland offense against the Steelers defense. There's a big scratch here. Joel Bitonio got the COVID. He is out for this Sunday, so that's a huge blow. I think he made the Pro Bowl this year for them. Looking at this offensive line, solid year. They only allowed 28 sacks, which is, 8th in the NFL. It's pretty good. In yards per carry, 4.8, which is 7th in the NFL. And, just looking at this Steelers D-line, it's pretty good. So I think this is going to be a fun matchup to watch. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt. I mean, they don't need any more explanation. They're pretty solid. So you guys give them the advantage to in this one.
Yeah, Browns O-line solid. Steelers D-line elite. I mean, they're really the best in the business. TJ Watt led the league in sacks this year. Probably going to be the defensive player of the year. Cam Hayward also on that line. That team just wreaks havoc. They get so many turnovers just because of the pressure that they're able to generate up front.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would level the playing field a little bit if Joel Bitonio was in this game, but, Bully is still right. They are elite, every one of them. Even Tyson Alualu is, he's not as good, but I think he's still very young. So he's got time to develop to get to that level that the other 3 guys there already are at. So just a solid group on both sides, but the Steelers, D-line is just that much better.
Yeah, all right. We can go to the next matchup then with the Browns running backs versus the Steelers linebackers. Obviously, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt leading the charge there for them. And you got Avery Williams. I think, Devin Bush is out for the Steelers. That was a big loss for them. Another guy kind of added that's also missing this game, Bud Dupree. I think he's been out for quite a bit. So even though the Steelers have some injuries, they're still one of the best defenses in the league. But looking at this linebacking core versus the running backs, who are you guys giving the advantage to here?
Well, I'm just curious, AJ. You didn't want to try to, pronounce the last guy's linebacker there for the Steelers. You didn't want to take a chance at that one.
No chance.
Not at all.
Olasukanami Aidinahi.
There's a G in there. There's no G in there. All right. Anyway, they even if they had Devin Bush, I still would give the edge to the Browns here, just because those two, Kareem Hunt, whether you agree, disagree, he got cut for his off-field issues, but he was the number 1 running back with the Chiefs and, one of the better ones in the NFL. And Nick Chubb, obviously in his own right, is a number 1 running back. So they have 2 number 1 running backs, and I don't think there's really many linebacking cores in the NFL that, can stop those 2. If one isn't doing great, the other one's there to pick them up. But a lot of the times they're both just really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. This is really the one area that I think the Browns are going to be able to exploit. And for them to win, they have to exploit this area. They got to slow this game down. They have to control the clock because if they get in a shootout with Ben, like I said earlier, it's just not going to go well for them. Baker does not have the weapons that Ben does in order to put up a bunch of points quickly like the Steelers do. So they've got to ride these two guys. I think they have a really good thing going. Kareem Hunt kind of out of the backfield on the receiving end, and Nick Chubb just getting 20, 25 carries a game, just absolutely going beast mode most of the season.
All right, and we'll go to the last matchup of the Browns receiving core against the Steelers secondary. You got Landry, Rashad Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Austin Hooper at the tight end spot. And then you're looking at the Steelers secondary, obviously very good. Steven Nelson, Joe Hayden, Mike Hilton, Minka Fitzpatrick. Pretty crazy. If they don't pick off the ball, they somehow find a way to defend it. So who you guys giving the edge to in this matchup?
Yeah, again, it's pretty clear. I love Jarvis Landry, but beyond that, I just don't think they have many consistent targets. Austin Hooper is a solid tight end, but you're having to go to Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Marvin Hall, and on the other side, you have all of these names that are covering those guys. I just don't think it's going to go very well for the passing attack for the Browns. What a trade last year for Minka Fitzpatrick for the Steelers. That guy came in and just exploded onto the scene.
Yeah, he's obviously been a huge difference maker for them. I mean, they were, going nowhere fast. They traded for him, and they've been great ever since. So, really goes to show you how important it is to have a really strong safety in the back there to kind of anchor your defense. So, yeah, for that reason, I do give the edge to the Steelers, obviously, as Bully pointed out. But, I mean, to the credit of the Browns receivers, I mean, not having Odell Beckham, for most of the season, these receivers have stepped up. Harrison Bryant, I believe, is his name. He's out with COVID for the Browns as well. He's their third tight end behind Njoku. So that is kind of a decent loss. He's been more involved in their offensive attack here in the last few weeks. But overall, yeah, even if he is there, it's still pretty clear that the Steelers secondary is much stronger.
All right, it's the time. Zinke, give us your prediction for this game.
I kind of alluded to in the beginning here, I'm going to pick the Steelers, and I think it's just because this is the perfect storm for the Browns. I want this to be a great game. I think it had an opportunity to, if you didn't have COVID, kind of taken out a lot of key players. Most importantly, Kevin Stefanski. I think that's going to be much more detrimental to them than people may realize or may think. But the Browns haven't been here in so long, and this is the Browns after all. So Browns are gonna Brown for one more year. I think it's gonna be 38 to 21. It's not really close.
Yeah, what is it with the Steelers? All these teams getting COVID right before they play them. Happened to the Ravens, happened to the Titans. Now it happens to the Browns. And like you said, it's such a Browns thing for this to happen. They finally make the playoffs, and then boom, COVID outbreak. I saw that happen. I'm like, oh my God, out of all teams for this to happen to. And yeah, I just think it's going to be too much for them to overcome. I do think that they are going to be able to run the football, so I think it's going to be a little bit closer of a game than Zinke thinks, but either way, I don't see them coming out on top. I'll say 28-21.
All right, I just want to say you guys picked the same winners of the 6 games. So, and there were all no upsets. So,
That's not true. We picked the Buccaneers.
That's not an
big upset.
Come on, unreal.
In terms of seeding, of course.
Oh my goodness.
And Baltimore over Tennessee. Wildcard team versus division champion.
Yeah, we did actually.
Oh, sorry. All right, well, I'm going to pick the Browns in this one, just so we can spice it up a little bit. I actually like how Chubb's been running the ball, and I do like their defense. I think they'll be able to find a way to shut down Big Ben. But it does help that I wish they had the Joel Platonio. That's obviously a big loss, but I'm still the Browns. This is their time. This is their year. 18 years they've been waiting for this, and they'll This is their time. This is their moment. They're gonna take down Pittsburgh.
Think about it this way: we went through the whole regular season, 256 games. Lots of COVID happened, for lots of teams. People were put on the list. This is the first time all year that a head coach was on it.
True.
And this is probably the coach of the year.
Yeah.
There's no way. This is the Browns. This is the perfect Browns situation. Like Boley said, not one head coach has ever been in a scare, close contact, nothing. This is the first time that the head coach, primary play caller, says, "Yeah, actually, we're done." Just don't.
I'm gonna take the Browns.
Who's that peeking down below me?
28-27.
Of course, you did that right as he took him away. So, way to go, AJ. Drop the ball.
Real.
But we'll end it here before this video gets ruined. So until next time, see you then.
Gets ruined. Bye.